Wood for the 4th of July Pasty, Part 2, William Hovey Smith, 2025.
This is Hovey Smith, the Backyard Sportsman, and happy 4th of July, folks. Well, we are resuming our wood gathering for our barbecue today. And in particular, we're going to be using this little Hart chainsaw, it's an electric chainsaw. And we're going to be taking wood from this small branch immediately above my head. This is pear wood, which I particularly want to we make a Cornish pasty. Now, I was using a Greenworks saw which threw its blade. And I have it on the shop right now, my shop. But my shop time last night was spent in making some modified dies so the shell holder would fit an ancient herder's reloading press. And I'm reloading the 10mm Magnum. And so that's what we've got on the reloading front. But that's a story for another day. So right now we've got a new battery installed here. We're going to get this chain adjusted. Yeah, it's a little slack. And we're going to gather some wood and we're going to do some cooking. These are the branches I'm going to be cutting. Well, it's been fed some warm oil, had a good night's rest, blade's tight, so here we go. There we go. All right, got those off. Now we can move them to someplace a little more convenient, perhaps. Going to see if our lawn tractor can do this and actually pull these branches away. Moving the tree to the fire has the advantages that I can use even these little small twigs as fire starting materials. And I can cut here in the shade, plus I'm not surrounded every minute by bunches of very virulent poison oak. I am not particularly susceptible, just like everybody else. I can get it if I touch it or rub it, but that was the reason for the overgarments while I was cutting for the last 2 days. So we're going to start working up this thing, and pretty soon, yeah, we're going to have some cooking going on. The jar griller that I'm using is now 11 years old and shows it. I keep it under a carport, so it is exposed to some weather, and we have heated it quite hot on occasion, and the pieces on the inside are somewhat deformed, but still functional nonetheless. It has a rack on the bottom for loading with wood, and I removed the wood I had stored on it to make it easier to move, as well as that gives me access to dry wood that's been drying for, well, a year or more, in comparison to this semi-green pear wood that I just broke up. You can see on the inside that the wood tray, or charcoal tray, is considerably deformed. And yeah, it's also a little bit holy, meaning it has a hole in it that burned through over the years. And the way I start a fire is put a little pine straw down and some clean white paper towels without any print on it, and then use that to ignite the smaller stuff, and then the larger stuff, and so on. And so we're going to construct our fire now. We've started off with a layer of pine straw on the bottom, and I've got small twigs against that, And then these pieces, which are little small limbs up to about 1 inch in size above that are mostly dried pecan. And so we're going to start off with this and see if we can get it going. I've added larger pieces of wood, whereas I'd started with pieces with a maximum of 1 inch size. Now I'm going to 2 inches. And the objective is to build up a good bed of coals. Those are nice. If I had everything ready, I could cook on that right now. We're going to have to put on another load of wood. A Cornish pasty is something like a calzone in that it's baked in a bread crust, but instead of being cheese filled, it is filled with beef, potatoes, and vegetables. And then in England, heavy on the beef and potatoes and light on the vegetables is a rule. This is a super deluxe Southern Georgia version. And so we have, not in this particular frying pan, but in the mix, we have zucchini squash, we have yellow squash, we have onions, we have carrots, which is often seen in England, or parsnips. We have a little jalapeno pepper to give it a little flavor, a little kick. We have some green pepper in here, a little celery. So this is quite a lot of flavors. And we pre-cook this mix before adding it to the dough. Well, if you're wondering if we're ever going to put any meat on the grill, well, its time has come. That's a flank steak, relatively inexpensive piece of meat. And that's what would typically go in something like a Cornish pasty. These were working class folks, so yeah, usually the lower cuts of beef were used. I put the salted meat in the frying pan, and I want to brown it and preserve as much of the pan liquor as I possibly can. I think I'm going to add a little beer to it for seasoning. I've added some beer and some water. We want it to cook slow, and we want it to cook tender. But this is going to be actually cut into very tiny pieces. I'm going to take that meat up now for further processing in the kitchen. And that flavorful juice is going in the pot. We've added the meat and mushrooms to the mix, and so we're going to cover that and just let that slowly simmer. I'm making this pasty for an old friend who actually is from Cornwall, who came to the United States as a young man and worked with George's kaolin or china clay industry, which actually has its roots in Cornwall ultimately. And he's been with us here in Georgia ever since. Now, using AI is helping people to find their own careers now that so many is being disrupted. And I encourage you to buy it, not only for yourself perhaps, but also for your friends and relatives now that you have them in one place. We've reduced those pear limbs down to pieces that I can actually put and burn in the grill. And we're going to start the fire shortly. Because the idea is to burn up all of that in the grill. Not that it is needed, but I'm going to burn it up anyway. If there are any of the larger pieces left over, then I'll just save them for, of course, our next cooking. The grill is now stone cold. It's quite an accumulation of ash we've got from all the wood we burned yesterday. But I'm going to put that in a bucket, and we're going to pour that on the lawn fertilizer, and then start the fire exclusively today with the pear wood. I've got the fire going by lighting it in the center back, and it's catching up on the pine straw well enough, and there's a good breeze today, which is one reason I'm not going to be able to burn outdoors. Plus it's dry here. We've got rain in the coastal Carolinas, floods in Texas, and floods in New England. But right now in central Georgia, we are quite dry indeed. The fire is burning hot enough now to definitely start combusting the pear wood, and you can see it catching and burning. So we're going to let that burn down and then add another load, and then start making our pasty covering. That is, make up the dough and make up the bread. That pear wood is making nice coals. And now I'm going to add some big blocks of wood in there now to hold that fire for an hour or so. And then we'll be ready to bake the pasties. We've got our pasty. We have our pasty at long last on the fire. So we're going to shut it up here. It's moderate, and let it bake for approximately 40 minutes, I think. We'll give it some ventilation and protect it a little bit from the wind. And we'll see what the temperature says, although it's really not terrible meaningful. That gauge is more aspirational than realistic, I think. We've got smoke coming from the chimney, which is good. Oh yeah, fire is still burning on the inside, so that'll be heating up. You can take a look at the gauge here. Gauge says 225 degrees and climbing. Well, I declare that done. Nicely browned. Don't want to do it more than that. Leave it on there longer, it's apt to burn at the bottom, which you do not want. I have no doubt the interior is heated, and so we're going to take it over to friend with in the frying pan. Well, how did our pasty do? It's been several hours since it was cooked now. It passes the durability test. A little bit browned on the bottom, but basically just about right. Yeah, has heft. Cuts with a serrated knife. The crust alone, well, let's say it tastes structural. basically fairly bland. It's often served with a horseradish sauce. We have red. We have white. Yes, that improves its taste. And you can definitely taste the smoke in the pear wood. And I get a little bit of afterbite from the horseradish and also the pepper that's in the original mix. And the meat is very tender. Not the best pasty there ever was, but for a first attempt in a very long time, and too much dough, and too little filling, yeah, I think we did reasonably good. And this is in memory of all those Cornish miners who came to the United States. They worked in the copper mines in Michigan, the iron mines, the silver mines of the West, the gold mines of California and the Carolinas and Georgia, and all throughout the nation. So these miners and their descendants, yeah, a lot of you out there, and thank you for what you did. And thank you, Derek, and thank you. And when you go to Duluth, Minnesota, or Butte, Montana, have your pasty. And this is Hovey Smith, reminding you to hunt what you eat and eat what you hunt. Be legal, be ethical, be safe. Goodbye, God bless, and see you next time.